Attack on Titan, Demon Slayer, Madoka Magica, it turns out this popular anime all use the same opening template. Hey, my name's Ellie. Today I'm going to introduce a universal opening template that can introduce conflict, develop characters, and help the audience quickly immerse themselves in the story. What's even cooler is that this template can be applied to stories across all genres. I call this template Crisis Teaser, Calm Before Storm, Crisis, and Expanding Events. Generally, the first episode of this anime is basically a mini story. We can also think of the first 1 to 3 chapters of a series or novel as a complete mini story, and this template breaks this mini story into 3 acts. And today I'll use Attack on Titan, Demon Slayer, and Madoka Magica as examples to show how this popular anime used this template. So here will be spoiler for the first episode of this series. And let's have a look at the first part of this template, Crisis Teaser. The 3 anime all take less than 5 minutes to set up this part, aiming to highlight the core conflict of the story. In other words, it shows that this story is about A against B. If you are not sure how to identify the core conflict, you may want to check out this video. And these shows often drop the crisis from Act 3 right at the beginning. For example, in Demon Slayer, Tanjiro's crisis in the first episode is that his family is killed by demons, leaving only his sister alive. So Act 1 simply shows Tanjiro carrying his dying sister. In Attack on Titan, the crisis is the Titan break through the wall. Madoka Magica is more aggressive with this by placing the entire story's crisis in Act 1, but this method works better for shorter works. The goal of Act 1 is to make a promise to the audience. Compared to everyday life, viewers are more engaged by crisis. So providing an exciting hook before the relatively calm Act 2 makes them more willing to stick around through the slower pace. And in Act 3, these works need to fulfill that promise. But before we get there, let's look at Act 2. Calm Before Storm. This is the most crucial part of the opening because it directly affects the dramatic impact of Act 3. In this act, anime always accomplishes a few key points. First, character crafting. This usually means showcasing the main character's strengths to get the audience to root for them. For instance, in Demon Slayer, Tanjiro has many likable traits, like valuing family and being helpful. It also highlights his sensitivity to smells, hinting at how he will use his traits to solve problems later on. Along with strengths, this anime subtly hints at areas where the main character needs improvement, but they don't make those flaws too obvious to overshadow their strengths. Attack on Titan struggles a bit here as Eren's impulsiveness can overshadow his likability. However, he has the support of beloved characters like Mikasa and Armin. In Madoka Magica, Madoka seems like a sweet girl, but if you look closer, she shows signs of being decisive and seeking validation. These flaws not only hint at character growth, but also make the main character feel more relatable and less perfect. Combining strengths and weakness creates a well-rounded character, enhancing audience immersion and making them more willing to follow the main character into the story. Besides character development, Act 2 also creates contrast. This act is always depicted as very pleasant. Since the audience has already seen Act 1, the more idyllic Act 2 feels, the more curious viewers become about what disrupts this happiness. This can invoke empathy, making the audience feel sad about the impending loss of such beautiful life. And this builds anticipation for the main character to solve the problem and return to their happy daily life. So within reasonable limits, this anime aims to portray Act 2 as blissful and joyful. Of course, this idyllic life should also contain some hidden foreshadowing, which is the third role of Act 2, hinting at the crisis. In Demon Slayer, Tanjiro heard the stories about demons eating people. In Attack on Titan, Eren warns the soldiers that Titans could break through the wall at any time. In Madoka Magica, Homeless transfer interrupts Madoka's peaceful school life and Kyubey appears in the corner. All of these elements subtly signal to the audience that Act 3 is approaching, keeping them from getting bored during the Act 2. And soon enough, this looming crisis will erupt, leading us to the most captivating third act. Crisis and expanding events. The crisis becomes climax in the first episode where we see Titans attacking, witches threatening humanity, and Tanjiro's family die. the story starts to take a turn for the worse. It's clear that the crises in this anime have just the right level of difficulty. They need to be challenging enough to demand the main character's growth, but not so difficult that they overshadow the end game of the whole story. For instance, the end game of Demon Slayer is defeating Muzan. But before that, Tanjiro will take on other demons. The crisis in the first chapter is turning his sister back into a human, which is more difficult than most demons but still below Muzan. In other words, the crisis presented in the first episode usually require the main character to grow to a certain extent before they can be solved. Placing this crisis at the beginning motivates the main character to take action and grow. Because the main characters in the first episode are still weak and unable to solve these crises are temporarily avoided in the opening instead of completely resolved. They might be suppressed by a character stronger than the main character. However, the main character must make sacrifices. For instance, in both Demon Slayer and Attack on Titan, the main characters lose their families. In Madoka Magica, the existence of magical girls keeps Madoka away from her normal school life. These sacrifices force the main characters to move beyond their peaceful daily lives from Act 2. They must push forward, solve problems, and go on adventures, setting the stage for the rest of the story. The crisis that has been set aside turn into expanding events. They remain unresolved, prompting the audience to ask questions. Can Eren kill all the titans? Will Madoka become a magical girl? Can Natsuko turn back into a human? The first episode ends here, leaving these expanding events to keep us eager to click on the second and third episodes to see what happens next. This achieves the goal of expanding events, keeping us hooked and wanting more. This is the common first episode template used in popular anime. I only selected 3 examples due to the length of this video, but it's clear that this template is widely used in series and novels as well. This approach makes the opening of the story not a boring straight line but a roller coaster, providing viewers with excitement and deepening their impressions of the characters. And because of this, we naturally become curious and follow the main character into a complete different world. That's all for this video. If there's any film or series you'd like me to break down, feel free to leave a comment below. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next week.